Storing men in history. So today we're going to talk about the Reichstag fire and the Reichstag fire decree, which Hitler used to take more German rights away. And that's what you have to be aware of. Crisis, emergency powers. These words should signify alarm. So, what was going on at the time? What set up the Nazis' rise to power so that they could get to this position? 1920s. Well, let's go back to 1918. 1918, you had the end of World War I. Then you had the Treaty of Versailles. Treaty of Versailles punished the Germans. Churchill thought it was a mistake. He thought it was too punishing on the Germans. And his words came to be true because it crippled the Germans and it created inflation and then hyperinflation because the French and Allies demanded payment when the Germans made part of the payments and then didn't and then did. It caused hyperinflation. People were taking, I think one historian said by 1923, it took 1 trillion marks for $1 American dollar. 1 trillion marks for $1 American dollar. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. So that creates disorder if you can't buy food, right? Inflation is, by the way, another tax, right? If the government creates inflation or inflation happens, that's a tax. So the Nazi Party was rising, and it went fast. 1923, they had about 25,000 members, I believe, and then it went to about 180,000 in 1929. And what happened in 1929? Wall Street crashes, you have a worldwide depression. So if you're looking for order and stability, what can a strong man give you? Perhaps you look to a strong man. So I think in 1932, Hitler got over 13 million votes to Hindenburg's 17 million. And the Nazis had around 584 seats. So on January 30th, 1933, Hindenburg appoints Adolf Hitler chancellor. And he didn't wait too long. So that's what we're here to talk about today. That's the setup. And we're going to talk about on February 1st, a little more setup. He wants more power, Hitler. So he comes up with this decree for the protection of the German people. Now notice decree for the protection of the German people. Was it really for the protection of the German people? No, it was for him to absorb more power and him to deal with political opponents and the communists. And he sold it that way for you, for your protection. Notice people who want power or totalitarians are always selling it for your protection, for your security, for your neighbor's security, for your benefit. Crisis, emergency, powers, limited powers that we just need for temporary uses. Many times don't turn out to be that way, and government is hesitant to ever give up power, especially totalitarians or people who love power. So let's watch what he does. He issues under, by the way, presidential authority, because Hindenburg's still president. February 4th, 1933. They take more power. What does it do? That February 4th, 1933 decree interferes with people gathering and talking. And if you want more power, it's better to cut people off from getting information from each other and to isolate them, right? So what did the act do? Frick was in charge of it, the Interior Ministry, and he started working with the local authorities to discourage and prohibit public meetings. So he also suppressed publications deemed dangerous to public security and order. So security and order, they're promising by doing this. So it was really dangerous or threatening to whom? To the totalitarians, to the people in power, right? They're doing this decree to protect themselves from their political opponents, the communists, and to gain more power. So they were also given power to eliminate strikes in areas and given more powers to arrest political opponents and communists or anyone. So you'll see totalitarians want to do what? Get rid of political opponents, arrest them. They don't like to be challenged. They like to censor. So we'll get to the official decree later. But on February 27th, and here's where we go. So that was February 4th. And this is relatively fast, right? He's just become chancellor January 30th. There's a Reichstag fire. Now, historians say they don't know who really caused it, whether it was the communists, but in fact, this Reichstag parliament burns, and Goebbels sees an opportunity. He's the propaganda minister, of course, for Hitler, to blame the communists so they can take out political opponents and gain more power. And they do it in the name of protecting people. So stay home, be safe, and we'll protect you, and we'll deal with the threats. So stay home, be safe. What do they always like to do? Cut you off from communication. Don't let you assemble. Now in America, we have Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, right? We have that. Now, no one can take your inalienable rights, but let's read the official decree. And here it is, 1933, Articles 114, 115, 117, 118, 123, 124, 153 of the Constitution of the German Reich are suspended. Suspended, think about that. Until further notice. Thus, restrictions on personal liberty, on the right of free expression. Notice what they're afraid of. They don't want restrictions on personal liberty, on the right of free expression or opinion, including freedom of the press, on the right of assembly and the right of association, and violations of the privacy of postal, telegraphic, and telephonic communications, and warrants for house searches. We have the Fourth Amendment. Orders for confiscations as well as restrictions on property are permissible beyond the legal limits otherwise prescribed. If any state, now watch how they interfere with state power, fails to take the necessary measures to restore public safety and order, the right government may temporarily take over the powers of the highest state authority. So notice how centralized governments, totalitarians and centralized governments, want to take more power from the state governments. They don't want interference, right? They don't want the local or state government getting in the way, especially, we'll probably do another one, a few more maybe, on the Nazis, because what they do after this is so wicked and horrendous. Let's see if we'll read any others of these. Whatever provokes, appeals for, or incites the disobedience of the orders given out by the supreme state authorities or the authorities subject to them for the execution of this decree, or the orders given by the right government can be punished insofar as the deed is not covered by other decrees with more severe punishments. Whoever endangers human life by violating is to be punished by sentence to a... Anyway, I think that gets it. The point is this. What are they trying to cut off? Let's go back. They don't want you. They want emergency powers. They want crisis powers. So be careful to stand and voice your opposition to, just voice your opposition to having your constitutional rights taken as men. Men need to stand up and voice their opinions, because look what they're trying to cut off. It's always the same if you think about it. Have you noticed this? They don't want you to assemble. They don't want you to go to church. We've seen that, right? Why? You could exchange information. It could increase your confidence in the information you have and the truth. Totalitarians need to cut off the truth. That's why they have the propaganda ministry. That's why they like to control the state newspapers back in Germany. We have the First Amendment. So here it is. Right, a free expression of opinion. They don't want any opinions out there. Watch censorship, including freedom of the press or on the right of assembly and the right of association. So don't want you getting together. And we've talked about that. So here's the thing. It got worse after this. And by the way, let me go back. 1930 to 1933, they were already bypassing Parliament using presidential powers, emergency powers, to accomplish things. So they had set a precedent in the German minds in 1930, 31, 32, before Hitler became chancellor, of using these presidential emergency powers. So you have to be careful to start letting them use emergency powers and not call it out and voice opposition to it, because it got much worse. But again, they had set the precedent before the Nazis got there of this decree of February 28th, 1933. They had already been using presidential emergency powers to go around the parliament, 1930, 31, 32. So what's the final point? As men, stand for the truth, voice opposition when they start talking about crisis and emergency powers. See if that's really necessary and proper. Because it's very difficult to get the powers back from the government, and they seem very hesitant to hand them back ever and go forward for the Constitution. Thank you.